Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our abbreviated meeting. A little strange here tonight, but I think we're all going to be used to it pretty soon. This meeting is going to be started at 5:01. Pastor Pete, is he on the line? Pastor Pete? As you probably noticed, most of this is all going to be done by call-in. Our invocation was to be led tonight by Pastor Pete, but perhaps we're a little early for him.
Let's move into the flag salute if you'd like.
Well, I think at this time we're going to move on to the flag salute. And it's probably easier if I do it again. So if you would please all rise and help me honor our great flag. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Pastor Pete? Well, then I think we're going to have to move on.
Hey, Jordan, would you like me to say a prayer?
Jeremy, that would be very appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, if you bow your eyes, let's take this time and pray over our city and our country. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this blessed day, Lord. Thank you that we can come together and serve. Thank you that we can make decisions for our community. Let us please come together as a community and remember the importance of everything that we're trying to do. And thank you for the continued leadership throughout the entire community, everyone coming together, not only just locally, but throughout the entire nation. Lord, be with our president, be with our governor, be with all of our leaders, and let us get through this epidemic as we move forward. In your name, amen.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. May we have a roll call, please?
Thank you. Councilmember Bonner?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Here.
Councilmember Green?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Mayor Aaron-Kranz.
Here.
At this time, I'll be asking each council member individually to confirm that they can hear me clearly. Councilmember Bonner, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Councilmember Green, can you hear me? Councilmember Green, can you hear me?
It's probably on mute. Yep, I can hear you. Sorry.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Mayor Aaron-Kranz.
Yes.
Thank you. Before we move on to the approval of the agenda, I would like to remind the council that all votes at this meeting will require a roll call. Also, please announce your name prior to speaking to ensure accuracy for the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I approve the agenda. Second, Larry Green.
We have a motion and a second to approve the city council agenda.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we do have one addition to the agenda this evening. It's an urgency item related to the coronavirus pandemic. We have a resolution we'd like to add as item number 9. It requires a 4/5 vote in our 2/3 vote in our, which in our case is 4 out of 5.
Okay.
I approve the agenda change. This Randall Bonner.
We have a motion to approve adding urgency item number 9. Do I hear a second?
Second, Larry Green.
Okay. just having a little trouble with the audio here right now, but I'm sure we're gonna get through it. We do have a motion in a second, and I believe this will, both will be roll call tonight, correct?
Yes, thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Bonner and a second by Councilmember Green to approve the agenda with the addition of urgency item number 9. Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaron
Aye.
Motion carried to approve the agenda with the addition of urgency item number 9.
Thank you. Don't believe we have any ceremonial matters.
Staff would just like to recognize that Mayor Pro Tem Castillo's birthday is in April. We presented her with a birthday card and a little cake at the Finance and Planning Committee meeting earlier today, and we just, again, would like to wish her a very happy birthday. It's at the end of April, but we would still like to wish her a very happy birthday, and we hope she has a wonderful day.
Well, I'll certainly second.
Thank you very, very much.
I'll second that. Is there any cake left?
We haven't opened it yet.
Oh, okay, good. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Community reports, do we have Darcy Burke on the phone?
Mr. Mayor, Jeremy Smith, Darcy just texted me trying to get on the line. Anna, what's the phone number for call-in? Because I think she has the wrong one.
Just a moment.
Could we perhaps text that number to Darcy as opposed to saying it?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Would you like to, well, I'll email you right now, if that's okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
I text you as well, so either way.
Okay.
Okay, we'll pass over that until she gets on the line. And then we can move on to the public safety update. Do we have the sheriff on the line?
Yeah, hold on, let me get off speakerphone.
I'm sorry?
Hi, you guys hear me all right?
Yes?
Yeah, fantastic. Hi, it's Lieutenant Sam Moravich. Got the Canyon Lake April safety report. We were able to get the stats together last minute, so hopefully you guys were able to get a copy prior to the meeting. Overall, the stats, or at least the data, looks fantastic. Calls for service were down in a positive way. Overall, the calls for service that were negatively impacting citizens of Canyon Lake went considerably down. And proactive work, such as traffic citations and arrests, were actually up. Of the 10 arrests, most were public intoxication. There was a couple of felonies, warrants and whatnot, but nothing unusual or out of the ordinary. And that's about what I have for this month. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. Hi, Lieutenant.
Good morning, afternoon.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, Larry, or was that Randy? I can wait.
Yeah. Okay.
Councilmember Bond?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry?
Do you have a question?
Yeah, a couple of questions. Is that Sam on the phone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, from December to January on larceny, it went from 4 to 9, and then down to 1, which is, or 2 down to 2, and then larceny theft went from 3 to 9, and down to 1. And what happened so much between December and January that caused the big jump and then goes back in February? Any idea?
So we're talking about, just make sure I'm clear, the understanding. You're looking at the statistics for larceny theft, where in December was 4, it spiked to January 9, and then back down to 1 in February?
Yeah, I'm looking at larceny theft and mobile vehicle theft, and then the jump on traffic citations.
Correct. So really covering over for the larceny theft and the motor theft, when you actually pull the calls for service, a lot of them were borderline thefts. Let's just leave it at that, where it was a known suspect or known person that they lived with or had a relationship with that on the way out, they took some items. So we had a couple of those reports. There was one where somebody had their doormat stolen. So no matter how big or how small, the deputies will still respond and take the report. So a lot of the larceny thefts in January were kind of spiked, but not in necessarily the larger crimes, if that makes sense. And then when you went over the motor vehicle thefts, you recall when we looked over those thefts, the 4 that were in January, there was one that appeared to be of legitimate nature. The other ones were, once again, either an ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, spouse, somebody's breaking up and the vehicle was taken away. I believe 2 out of those 4 were taken out of the town center and 1 was actually off of a tow truck. So there was some unusual activity, higher reporting, but nothing that would indicate that there was some sort of crime spree going on per se. We like to think also, we're hoping that one of the things that we targeted in January, and you looked at the calls for service at that point, where they were actually high, is because it was when the deputies were out doing proactive work, they pulled 1060s, or called file numbers, to show that they were doing proactive work. So the numbers were actually spiked higher in January due to their extra proactive work. And then you look in February, they're back down slightly. Well, the proactive files are still there, but the reactive, like I've become a victim calls, were considerably down. So the data set's too small to say that there's a causation between their proactive work and the results, but we're hoping that we see that trend continue, because we believe the proactive work by the deputies will in fact help keep the crimes down.
Okay, that was very good feedback. Last one on traffic citations, and I'm probably good, but why? Any reason went from 10 to 19, or 17 to 19?
I'm sorry, part of what you're saying was there's some unusual noise in the back.
Traffic citations went from 4 to 17 to 19.
Yeah, the 8, 17 to 19? Yeah, I believe part of that, and once again, I'm going to do a little bit of speculation. Generally, the human nature kicks in around December when we have Christmas, and the amount of traffic stops tend to be the same, but the amount of warnings tend to go up and citations tend to go down around that season. So I believe the speculation on that is accurate. As you see, the following month, there's more of a consistent nature of written sites, 17, 19, and I think as you go forward, they'll be continuous until, once again, the Christmas season rolls around again.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Okay. Hi, Lieutenant. This is Casey Castillo.
Hello.
Hi. I'm on the Finance Committee, and we meet before council meetings every month. We noticed that from our bill the month before, and I mean, obviously we're talking about January. So from December to January, we saw an increase from approximately $125,000 for a month to $154,000. So a $29,000 increase from January 2nd to January 29th, which isn't even an entire month. So basically more than $1,000 a day, if you average it out. When we're looking at total arrests that actually went down, can you kind of give some insight as to a $29,000 increase?
To be honest, that's something I wouldn't be able to pull immediately, but it's something that I can look into and get back to you shortly. Because I would have to pull the actual billing from our accounting staff as well as from my admin lieutenant. But I promise you I can get it back to you as soon as possible.
Right.
It's not something I'm going to be able to speak on accurately immediately. It wouldn't be fair to you, and it wouldn't be fair, probably accurate either. But I can definitely get back to you shortly with it.
Okay, because I mean, I guess my question is, did we have more deputies on patrol, or, you know?
I know we had an hour spike.
That's not, I'm sorry?
Yeah. We had an hour spike. So we had more hours used. So generally we try to put out the standard 1 deputy per shift. So throughout there's 24 hours a day, but if there's an incident that occurs that needs more deputies, we pull them from those that are deployed in other areas throughout the station. So they're deployed in Menifee, they're deployed in Paris, they're deployed in the county area, and we pull them in for a modest or significant incident. They get billed while they're working within Canyon Lake. Now, I noticed that we did have more hours, but the specific instance behind those hours, I don't have handy.
Okay, so then that gives me a new question. So if we're paying for one deputy essentially in a 24-hour period, then what you're saying is if the station assigns additional deputies, that's not included in our contract?
So you get assigned a deputy per shift, which would be 2 deputies during the day. So you have 24-hour coverage throughout the entire week. Because right now they're set up their own 12-hour shifts on platoon system. So you have 4 assigned deputies to Canyon Lake to cover the whole week. Now that's assuming that whenever they're deployed, only 1 deputy is necessary. Now say for example, we had a significant suicide last Friday. Well, that took a considerable amount of other deputies beyond this 1 deputy that's deployed that day. So those deputies get deployed out from other areas that they're initially assigned. During that time, whatever the hours that they're being used for that investigation or that incident, our accounting will look through their hours and will bill for those hours used for Canyon Lake. Because it wouldn't be fair if, say, for example, we pulled 3 deputies that are deployed to Menifee to temporarily work for Canyon Lake and then say, thank you, Menifee, we appreciate it. We would have to split up the bill. And vice versa. If we had a homicide in the county the other day, we had full bodies from the city of Paris. We wouldn't bill the city of Paris for the homicide in the county. Our accounting will actually break down those hours to the specific area.
Okay. Hey, Chris, are you hearing this? Because in our conversation, that didn't seem to be your understanding of our contract.
Yes, yeah, I heard that. I'm looking forward to seeing what Lieutenant sends to us by way of explanation and taking it from there.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's ever really changed. It's for the most part. I mean, I've been assigned to Paris for the station of Paris for quite some time. And when we do the billing, it is an open book thing that we ensure that it is fair to each of our contract holders and our stakeholders in there. I'm not sure if there's some way I can help the misunderstanding. I'm here for you, but for the actual specific of why the time between the 2nd and 29th was higher, I'd have to look into. But as for how the billing worked, that nothing's changed. That's been pretty consistent.
Okay.
And Chris, if you have any questions, we can talk offline as well. But once again, unless something else has occurred, the billing hasn't changed in any way.
Because I mean, we don't have so I'm on the committee. We review the bills every month. The bills are always 125K. So when it was 154K, it flew off the page at us, right? And
I absolutely will look into it, but it's not something that I have handy and that I'd be able to accurately speak on right now.
Understood.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Councilmember Smith.
Just a question in regards to, we saw and I'm sure you've been getting, different conversations on the announcement from Bianco in regards to enforcing for social distancing, social gathering, businesses, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you're well aware of the new ordinance, the announcement that we did a code red here in the city. Just wondering on how you guys are going to enforce that, considering it kind of goes against what Bianco stated in March 20th or March 21st when we did that e-blast.
That is actually a fantastic question and something that we've been speaking about as well, because we get the same questions throughout all of our station areas. One of our highest call volumes we get, no matter where, is what they call social distancing violations. And as I stated, the sheriff put out a very specific that there wouldn't be any enforcement. I believe that's become a fluid thing at this point. As things are changing, as more facts are coming out, that stance isn't going to be as firm as initially put out. And we did receive the emergency orders from Chris, and I appreciate that. We've been going through it. We've been sharing it with our admin downtown, and we're going to do everything we can to help you guys enforce it. I believe, using the POA first initially, and then assisting them behind. Our stance right now is if there's some sort of criminal violation, then we can definitely step in and do that, but we're hoping at this point the POA, the power of the fine, will be enough until we get direction otherwise.
Well, just to
Not
get you up
trying
to,
I'm trying not to sound wishy-washy on it, but it
No,
is
no,
definitely
no.
something that keeps evolving, and we're adapting as it continues on.
absolutely. Just to get you up to speed on the ordinance, because I don't know if you've read through it or not. You said you got it from Chris, but it is actually a misdemeanor. And it's the code enforcement from the city, not the POA that's enforcing this. Yes, we're working alongside, but we're taking this hand in hand and leading the charge on it. The way that it's been, shared to me, as you know, when you're on the local elected, you're part of a ton of conference calls and how other cities are doing it as well. When these ordinances are coming out from cities, they're asking their police partners, for us, it's sheriff, we don't have our own police department, to enforce, this that we're trying to put together. So as of right now, are you guys stating that you will not be enforcing if you see social gathering, or if you see, these ordinances that we put in place being broken, that we won't be able to rely on the sheriff's department to enforce what the city has put together?
And just for clarity, so the misdemeanor stance, this is a misdemeanor that's been codified by the city. When, for example, the enforcement's occurred, now it's time to actually go through, say, litigation or them fighting. Does this have to go through your city attorney, or is this going to be routed through the DA's office?
Okay. It's both.
I'd like to ask our
Yeah, and Steven's on the call too.
Yeah, let me do two things. First, let me ask our city attorney, Stephen Graham, to answer that question about how they're routed, and then also our enforcement supervisor, Gina Dixon, is here, and she'd like to comment on this as well. So, Stephen?
Sure. I think it'd probably be wise to briefly respond, because we are in the public safety update. We do have an item on the agenda specifically related to this emergency regulation, so I'll just try to keep it brief. The anticipation, and we've been working with the district attorney's office on what their anticipated enforcement model is, but the anticipation right now is that if we're issuing misdemeanor citations for violation of this emergency regulation, those will be prosecuted by the city attorney's office.
Okay. And that becomes a little bit problematic for us, and not to say we're not going to assist, we are, but if it's to the DA and the DA is going to enforce it, then that's an easy no-brainer. We're going to make the arrest. We'll submit the cases there. But when it's routed to the city attorney, then this becomes not so black and white. We've had problems in the past with other cities where they brought in misdemeanors for, say, dispensaries. We do the enforcement. We go in there, we take property, seize evidence, make arrests, and then the city attorney decides, no, we're not going to do anything. Wait. And then the litigation comes back on top of us as the department for enforcement. So it's not like something we're going to have to work out.
Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, Councilman.
If you don't mind, I have a question. I know that you and Chris have been working around the clock in regards to putting this ordinance in place. When this was going back and forth and we were having conversations, did we at all have conversations with the sheriff's department in regards to Sims, just looking at, this is the service that we're paying for, and therefore they're enforcing it, or was there no communications with the sheriff's department? Where are we at with that? Because last time I checked, they're servicing the needs and wants of the city, and if we're creating an ordinance that's in place, it really comes down to what we're paying for. So just kind of help me out a little bit understanding on that.
Gotcha. I'd probably have to defer to the city manager on the conversations and process he went through in working with our law enforcement partners in developing the regulatory, the emergency regulation that we have. I can tell you that the initial contact and enforcement is anticipated to be city code enforcement, special enforcement personnel, with the sheriff coming in as backup if we don't have compliance. But with that said, again, I'd suggest that if we want to have a very full discussion about the emergency regulation and its enforcement, we probably should wait until we are at that item on the agenda. But I'll still defer to the city manager because there's a question from a council member.
Certainly. So yes, I did have a conversation with Captain Sims prior to the order being issued. I sent him a copy of the language. He acknowledged it. I was given no reason to believe that we would not receive support. I've still not heard anything from the Sheriff's Department to suggest that we would not receive the support we need. I do understand that there was a memo that was sent out by the Sheriff on March 20th following the governor's executive order. My understanding is that that memo was related specifically to the governor's executive order. Now there's a city that has, being Canyon Lake, that has adopted orders that call out violations as misdemeanors. And I believe our expectation is that we would have the backup of the Sheriff's Department should we need it. And again, I haven't heard anything to contradict that. But let me, Enforcement Supervisor Janet Dixon has been waiting patiently to make a comment, so let me have her do that.
I believe that when the urgency ordinance was discussed by all, we understood what Sheriff Chad Bianco had in mind, and that was why we were extending enforcement's extra patrol hours, extended patrol hours. We received the 10-8 update from the Riverside County District Attorney's Office, and I just want to confirm with you, Lieutenant, that we have 832 PC powers to arrest from the state of California to issue misdemeanor citations to have processed by our city attorney. We just want to make sure that our officers, when we ask for backup, our enforcement officers out in the field are going to get the appropriate response. We are taking the lead on this and only expect to reach out to our deputy if or when the situation deems necessary as per the 10-8 update from the DA's office. So those charges would be for the health and safety code violation to the executive order, followed with the 148, which is refusing to disperse. And we intend to fully follow the DA's notice and the filing. So I just want to make sure our officers, enforcement officers, are going to be safe out in the field as we walk the line and do not cross over into the law enforcement crime realm.
Yeah, there's absolutely no.
Is that you talking?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Bonner.
Okay, I would really, I may be in the minority, but I appreciate when the staff is talking, they identify who's talking and talk up a little bit more, please.
Yes, sir. My apologies.
Okay, we'll see that that gets done, Mr. Bonner. Am I to understand?
I'm sorry?
I understand it from what I'm getting from this conversation is there's going to be more answers to this when we get to this subject? Or is this?
Yeah, we can certainly have a bigger conversation about this when we get to the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, is the lieutenant planning on staying on the call the entire time?
Right.
I can be here as long as you need. I'm still here, and the few people, and I apologize because I didn't catch their names, it sounds like they're on the same page, that the enforcement's going to be taken part by your officers, and then absolutely, if for whatever reason they need us to be there, we'll be there to back them. And one of the things I stated earlier is if another criminal violation occurs while we're there, I believe the last speaker stated if there's a resisting a lawful arrest, there's a 415, so there's a public disturbance, we can absolutely step in and take those arrests as well. And while everyone was talking, I was able to bring up the email response from our admin in regards to this emergency order. And I apologize, Chris, I thought you were CC'd on it, but it looks like you weren't. It says, Canyon Lake issued the following order today. This was dated on the 31st. In compliance with the order for Sheriff Bianco, we will not take enforcement action on this order. However, we may be called to keep the peace should Canyon Lake's code enforcement take action. We have the department directive attached to it, and that's on behalf of the sheriff via Captain Sims.
Thank you.
Hey, Chris. Chris, this is Councilman Green.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to enforce, we talked about voting activities are still allowed. I just happened to come by the main causeway. There's 4 boats tied up in the back bay with fully loaded people, all of them.
Right. Well, that is certainly in violation of the orders that were issued.
Right.
If we become aware of that, then we will ask our enforcement department to go and investigate and to inform those involved of what the orders are. And at that point, if they refuse to comply, then they could be subject to misdemeanor charges.
Are we gonna put them out on the boat?
I'm sorry?
Because right now, I don't think that anybody, they accumulate in the bay, and because the weather's getting nice, that's gonna be, I think, an enforcement issue.
Agreed, and you know, one of the challenges we have is just you know, numbers of personnel that we have, the, you know, the manpower limitation. So when you talk about putting our enforcement boat on the water and having active enforcement on the lake, we may need to look at that at some point. Right now the lake has not been the focus, but we're going to have to figure out how we're going to handle personnel and where people are most needed and where they should be assigned. As we get into the warmer months, I imagine we'll see more and more boating activities and violations on the lake. It may make sense for us to launch the enforcement boat on the main lake and do some enforcement there. But you know, we're just gonna have to realize that we're not set up. We don't have the staff to be everywhere all at once. So
I think
the POA.
Maybe.
I'm sorry.
Maybe
sorry. Go ahead.
A solution would be to somehow put signage at the launch ramps. I know people can take them down, but at least it lets them know that even though they're on the water, we're still using the distancing, and maybe that'll work, and we don't have to put so much enforcement because it's going to be a difficult situation.
Councilman Green?
This council member Bonner, I reported, he left a voicemail for Chris about an hour ago on the same subject that Larry Green is bringing up, okay? And the reason is because the children are out in school, so they're looking right now like we normally have a Fiesta Day, Memorial Day, and July 4th, okay? And it's starting early, okay? And it seems to me that Marine Patrol could be part of that process to stop those people and tell them they need to disperse. Is that correct or not?
Just a moment, Councilmember Bonner. Our city attorney has a comment.
So it seems pretty clear that the council really wants to talk about item number 9 and sort of move on from the public safety update. My recommendation, Mayor, would be to use your ability to move to that item at this time, since that is now on the agenda. I've asked the city manager if he's prepared to give that presentation. We have the sheriff's representative on the phone. If that's the pleasure of the council to have this conversation about the emergency regulation, my recommendation would be to move to that and get off the public safety update.
I think that's a great idea. We don't have to keep the lieutenant on the phone for the entire meeting as well. And just to comment, Councilman Green, you know, from my vantage point where our house was, I could hear the people on the boat. There was a couple of boats out there with families on it, which are the same families that are together in their house. We're going to have a difficult time, I think, telling people that they can't enjoy some of their leisure time together, but that's just a comment, isn't it? But I think...
Well, I think right there, I agree there, but when we start tying off, and obviously you're right there, Jordan, so that is a popular place for many boats to gather, and the weather is turning. And so I think a lot of people are thinking that that's going to be one of their places. And I just wondering if that's where we want to invest our resources or not.
Well, it's a good point. And as I say, I think we're going to have some pushback on a few items such as this. But I think this is the time, at the suggestion of our city attorney, to move to this item number 9. And we can come back to the rest of this, to the agenda, after that is completed. So if you don't mind, if you don't have any other questions at the moment.
I would just like to make a comment. We have not read the public comment statement yet, but for any members of the public who are watching and would like to comment, we are accepting public comments electronically in real time. I have my computer here. The email address is publiccomment@cityofcanyonlake.com. If anybody wishes to comment on this item while the city manager is presenting it, while the council is discussing, we are accepting comments through email, and I will read them into the record as we go on with the item. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Item number 9 is a resolution of the City Council confirming the emergency order that was issued by the City Manager acting as the Director of Emergency Services. Before we dive right into the resolution, I'd like to give a fairly detailed recap of how we arrived at where we are today. There's a lot here, so please bear with me. On March 4th of this year, the governor proclaimed a state of emergency to exist in California as a result of the threat of a global outbreak of coronavirus, also referred to as COVID-19. On March 10th, as more cases were detected locally, the Board of Supervisors proclaimed the existence of a local emergency in Riverside County. On March 13th, the President of the United States declared a national emergency. On March 16th, the health officer of the County of Riverside issued an order to address the COVID-19 public health crisis by, among other things, prohibiting public and private gatherings of more than 10 people. On March 19th, the governor issued Executive Order N3320, directing all individuals living in the state of California to stay home or at their place of residence, except for certain sectors which the state deemed to be essential. On March 19th, following an update from the County Department of Public Health that confirmed cases of COVID-19 were rapidly expanding in southwest Riverside County, acting as the Director of Emergency Services, I issued a proclamation declaring the existence of a local emergency in the city of Canyon Lake. That declaration was ratified by the City Council at a special meeting held on March 25th. The declaration allows the city to respond more quickly and with broader authority as events unfold, to receive federal dollars as reimbursement for funds expended responding to the emergency, and gives the city limited immunity from lawsuits resulting from actions taken by city staff and members of the council. On the evening of March 19th, following the declaration of local emergency, our enforcement department was called back to the office at approximately 9:00 p.m. Shortly thereafter, they began patrolling the city and posting copies of the governor's executive order on the front doors of businesses. Working until almost midnight and then back at it first thing the next morning, they assisted residents and business owners in understanding the executive order and helped to keep the community safe from potential vandalism, looting, and other crimes that sometimes come with businesses being closed. Expanded patrols and enhanced presence in the community have continued and will likely continue until the local emergency is lifted. Beginning the following day, March 20th, City and the POA offices closed to the public in order to protect the health and safety of staff and the community. However, staff continue to come to work and services continue. Residents may access city services via phone, email, and the city's website. Most importantly, public safety services have not been disrupted. On March 25th, Mayor Aaron Kranz and Mayor Pro Tem Castillo issued a video statement to the community on behalf of the City Council. In addition, a new page has been created on the city's website dedicated solely to the COVID-19 pandemic. That website is continually being updated with the latest information from the CDC, Governor's Office, State Public Health Officer, County Department of Public Health, County Emergency Management Department, and others. Staff has also been sending information out to the city's Facebook page, and I know that members of the council have been disseminating information on social media as well. In addition, several critical updates have been sent through Code Red, the city's emergency notification system. On March 26th, the city published new procedures for public participation in city council meetings during this time of social distancing. Yesterday, March 31st, acting as Director of Emergency Services, under authority granted during a time of local emergency, I issued orders declaring that all persons living within Canyon Lake are to remain in their homes. All businesses within the city of Canyon Lake are to cease operations that require in-person attendance by workers at a workplace. All public and private gatherings of any number of people occurring outside of those individuals' residences are prohibited. All travel is prohibited. These orders are subject to a list of exceptions, which can be found under Section 5 of the document. The orders went into effect at 11:59 p.m. on March 31st and shall be in place until May 6th at 11:59 p.m. unless rescinded or extended prior to that time. Failure to comply with these orders shall constitute a misdemeanor subject to fines and imprisonment, pursuant to Canyon Lake Municipal Code Section 2.28.100. City code enforcement and special enforcement officers, as well as the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, have been authorized to actively enforce these orders. Offenders may be issued criminal citations requiring them to appear in court to answer to misdemeanor charges. So why were these orders issued? As COVID-19 continues to grow in the region, and as we now have 3 confirmed cases within the gates of the city, we must take additional emergency measures to further limit the spread of the virus. Riverside County Department of Public Health now estimates that the spread of the virus is doubling every 4.5 days, and that by April 30th, there will be 50,000 confirmed cases and 1,000 related deaths in the county. Further, it is anticipated that demand for hospital beds will exceed capacity in the county within 9 days. I'm missing a page here in my comments, I apologize. I want to emphasize that although there's been some confusion on these orders, in large part these orders are no different from the circumstances that existed before we issued the orders. The biggest differences are that people can no longer congregate or gather in any number of people other than with the people who live inside your home. The other big difference is that our enforcement officers are now authorized to issue misdemeanor citations for people who do not comply. So it is still permissible to do all the same things we could have done 2 days ago. You can still go to the grocery store, you can still go to a doctor's appointment, you can still go for a walk, you can still go out on your boat. You just can only do those things alone or with the people who live inside your home. These are incredibly difficult times. I'm very proud of the way a majority of this community has responded. This community has a big heart. We've seen a lot of people reaching out to help their neighbors and to offer assistance and supplies if needed. But unfortunately, we've also received mounting complaints of people who are not following the rules. Groups of people hanging out, having house parties, people playing on playgrounds which have been closed and taped with caution tape, and people are just ignoring that. Large groups of people on small boats, roaming groups of teenagers. All of these things are not acceptable given the current circumstances and pose a threat to the community. So the city felt that it was necessary to take this action at this time. So the resolution in front of you would confirm these orders. By law, the city council needs to confirm the actions at the soonest possible date, which was today. And the staff recommends approval of the resolution.
Thank you. Well, I suppose at this time we're going to either take public comments or are going to approve the motion for the resolution.
I have no comments. Again, I would like to remind the public the email address is publiccomment@cityofcanyonlake.com. But we have no comments at this time.
I move it, Mayor. This is Councilman Green. I move that we go ahead and approve the resolution. I think it's pretty clear that this virus is going to get worse, and I just think that we need to have this tool help with our enforcement, but also our education process.
Thank you.
It's Randy Bonner, I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve urgency item, or resolution number 2020-08.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, please.
Before we move along with the vote, if it's okay, just want a little discussion on the ordinance. More for just clarification reasons, because I think Larry brought up a really good example. I saw it too, people gathering, especially on the boats and being able to identify. Chris, Mr. City Manager, have we reached out to the POA, or even this is a question for code enforcement too, have we reached out? Are they helping us with enforcement? Are the security guards looking for us and they're calling us? And then, you know, how's the communication side working with the POA in this regards?
Yes, Councilman Smith. The short answer is yes. There's been communication and cooperation, but let me defer to Enforcement Supervisor Gina Dixon to answer that more thoroughly.
Thank you.
Enforcement Supervisor Gina Dixon speaking. I did talk to the on-duty lieutenant for Community Patrol. I provided them with the update, the direction, the urgency ordinance, highlighted the sections, provided a phone number for contact of any watch commander that needed to relay an ongoing problem or issue. We're trying to work together, but it's important to understand that they are not a unilateral government agency, so health and welfare does not fall as their responsibility, but they are definitely out there and willing to assist, and we're going to take all the help we can get.
Thank you, Gina.
Well, can I enter? This is Councilman Green.
Yes.
If we use the POA as an education communication link to the people that are out there, and let them, because they do have a boat, 2 boats out most of the time, when they see those occurrences, at least advise the people. If they get pushback, then I think our code enforcement would then be notified, and then if we need to take additional action. But I think most people want to be compliant. It's just that we do have a few that are being resistive, but maybe we tried the education thing, but we also have the tool now to enforce. If those who do not want to adhere to our guidelines, then they get a ticket.
Community Patrol, Gina Dixon with Special Enforcement again. Community Patrol was provided the order that the District Attorney's Office pushed out as the educational material to be provided and given the opportunity to disperse prior to contact from city enforcement. So that has already been shared.
Council have any other comments? Our city clerk has something that she would like to say.
I just want to clarify prior to taking a vote on this item, the resolution before you tonight is 2020-13, and the title is, it's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Canyon Lake, California, confirming the emergency orders issued by the city manager acting as the Director of Emergency Services. Again, the clarification is the resolution number is 2020-13.
Oh, my error then, apparently. Any other comments by the council?
Yes, I have one more. Gina, if you don't mind, can you give me an example in which you would rely on the Sheriff's Department with social gathering?
So without giving up any officer safety information, should we approach a home and need a keep the peace from the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, or we're anticipating a lot of drinking, maybe a little bit of belligerence, we have to sum it up when we get there and call for dispatch for a keep the peace. If we give them an opportunity to disperse and they don't, according to the DA's office, at that time would be when we would be authorized to issue the misdemeanor citation, which is a notice to appear, not to be taken lightly as it is a misdemeanor arrest. But if a misdemeanor has to be committed in our presence, we have to be there, we have to observe it, we have to collect evidence, which would be by video footage or camera, and we have to assess the situation. So if they refuse to give their driver's license or information, that would be when we would rely on law enforcement to help us obtain that. The only other option would be, go ahead, Case, council member.
Oh, I'm so sorry. But my question was, I thought you were done. My question was along the lines of then, is our city accepting citizen arrests? misdemeanors not committed inside, or in your presence?
City Attorney Graham, can you address that? I've never accepted a citizen's arrest. However, I wouldn't imagine I couldn't.
To answer that, I don't want to give away the entire enforcement playbook at the public meeting if I can avoid it. I would say that the preferred method would be for, if someone is witnessing a violation, for them to submit that information to city code enforcement, and for the city code enforcement officer to give people notice that they're in violation of the order, give them an opportunity to disperse, and then witness the violation themselves. If they're still having trouble, then they would refer it to the sheriff's department. That's the general flow for this. However, if there are significant events going on that are a danger to public safety, of course, we'd be able to respond to that as well.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember Castillo?
It sure did. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Any other comments before we take the vote? Hearing none, then I will request a roll call vote on this resolution.
If I could just get clarification, I had a motion from Councilman Green. Did we have a second?
I think Councilman Bonner seconded the motion.
And this is for the approval of Resolution 2020-13, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaron-Krantz?
Aye.
Motion carried to approve resolution number 2020-13, and for the record, we do not have any public comments on this item.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on, or move backwards, I should say, to the original order. Do we have Darcy Burke on the line?
Yes, Mayor Aaron-Krantz, I'm here.
Well, I think it's appropriate at this time to take your report then. Please, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And my first comment, I just wanted to thank the City Council and staff for the leadership you've shown during this crisis and pandemic effort. It's unprecedented, and I think we're all learning our way. So thank you all very much for your effort. And for staff that are out in the field actually taking the risk for themselves and their families. So thank you very much. Probably similar to the city, we actually activated our Emergency Operations Center on Friday, March 13th, and we declared an emergency officially as a Board of Directors on March 26th. Some of the processes that are in place are similar to yours as well. Our lobby is closed. However, we have a reduced customer service staff in the building answering phone calls, taking information that's needed. Developers can still submit all of their plans or information online, and if that's not possible, we have mechanisms in place to keep everybody safe and for them also to submit them via secured method.
Darcy? Darcy,
yes.
May I interrupt for one moment? We don't need to keep the lieutenant on the line now, do we?
No, unless he would like to
No,
listen to the
Lieutenant, are you still on the line?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think we have probably captured all the information that we need from you. There's no reason for us to keep you here any longer.
All right, I will also follow up on the information involving the budget for January shortly, and then I will reach out to Chris either later on today or tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much for your information tonight. And Darcy, I'm sorry for interrupting you at this point. Please continue.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We do still have field staff actively doing what we normally do to keep water quality and water supply going. We have changed how they are teamed up, so to reduce the impact or risk should one of them become ill. But you will see our operators out in the field, and they will have their personal protective equipment on them. We just ask that public keep their distance, and if they have a question, they can call the customer service line and we will respond. As a result of the situation, the fluctuation in the markets, and really just actually in prior times, we've done this as well, but even before the governor called for it, we have suspended all shutoffs for non-payment until June 1st. As this crisis continues or develops, we will revisit that if we need to, and we may extend that. But currently, there are no service shutoffs in effect for non-payment, and we are willing to start setting up payment situations now in anticipation to when that shutoff mandate is relieved. Normally, I would have been telling you that today we started operations at the Canyon Lake water treatment plant, but that treatment plant will remain offline for the foreseeable future. We are doing we will be letting out a request for proposals for a comprehensive review of how we operate the system, what improvements need to be made to address some of the water quality mandates that are coming down, and how to operate it most efficiently and effectively, as well as cost effectively, because it's not inexpensive to treat water. The only other item I wanted to let you know is that the wastewater flows in the last 2 weeks at all 3 of our wastewater treatment plants have increased by 50% with the stay-at-home order. So I would just remind people to be mindful that there's only 3 things you flush down a toilet: pee, poop, and toilet paper. Those flushable wipes are not flushable. You need to dispose of them in the trash can. So the more we can keep those things out of the system, the less expensive it is to maintain or repair it. So I'm happy to take any questions, Mayor or City Council or staff. I really appreciate the opportunity to participate and happy to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for Darcy Burke?
Darcy, thank you so much. This is Casey Castillo. Thank you so much for the information on the wipes. I had gotten some questions about that in light of the toilet paper shortage, that people were just going to replace it with paper towels or wipes. And I had recalled that, right, and I had recalled that you had spoken at a past council meeting and were adamant that that was not something that should be going down into our water. So is there an infographic or anything that EBWMD can share with us so we can post on the city website so we can remind people and maybe not have issues with our water?
Yes, actually I had one on the Burke for Water Facebook page, but I will share it with Anna if that's appropriate, and she can share with all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Darcy. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much for staying on the line.
All right.
All right, bye-bye.
Is the fire chief on the line?
Chief League, are you on the line? I was under the impression that they were going to call in, but maybe he couldn't wait. They did provide statistics, however, I did email them to the council and provided a hard copy to the mayor and staff.
Okay, we do have the statistics. I don't think it's necessary to read them at this time, but Gina, do you have something else that you'd like to present to?
I just wanted to point out that with everybody home and school going to distance learning through the end of the year, we are seeing a lot of BLM land activity and camping. So while keeping up on everything else, we are still hitting that over there. I did send an email to BLM Rangers and Riverside County Parks and Recreation. They also agree that the rise in dirt bikes out there and the ATV use is just, it's off the charts. So we're doing the best that we can, and the Rangers are taking the ATV out more often, and they are issuing citations. So I just wanted to remind everybody that the BLM area is not for motorized vehicle activity, and most of it is actually a wildlife preserve area, so it does harm their land.
Okay, thank you for that report. I think we're moving on now, we're on the consent calendar now.
On the public comment portion,
I thought you read that already.
not quite.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Any person wishing to address the city council on any matter within the jurisdiction of the city, whether or not it appears on this agenda, is asked to submit their comment electronically by sending an email to publiccomment@cityofcanyonlake.com. Completed electronic submissions received by 5 p.m. today are guaranteed to be read into the record. Please note that while I will be accepting email comments during this meeting in real time, it is not guaranteed those comments will be read into the record during the meeting, although the comments will be included as part of the official record. If you are commenting on an item on the consent calendar or on items not on the agenda, I will read the emailed submissions into the record during the public comments portion of this agenda. If you're commenting on a business item or public hearing, I will read the emailed submissions into the record at the time that particular item is scheduled on the agenda. During this period of social distancing, electronically submitted comments should be no more than 250 words and include the person's name and agenda item number. We have not received any comments.
I guess that's why I thought you'd read it before. Thank you very much. Now we can move on to the consent calendar.
Thank you. All items listed on the consent calendar.
Approved.
Sorry, Councilmember Bonner, if I may read this statement quickly. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine matters, status reports, or documents covering previous city council action. The items listed on the consent calendar may be enacted in one motion. With the concurrence of the city council, a council member may request that an item be removed for further discussion. Staff recommends approval of all items.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to pull any items? No? Okay. Well, now then I entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the consent.
We have a motion. Do we have a second, please?
I'll second.
Motion and a second.
Jeremy Smith.
Thank you. Have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaron Kranz?
Aye.
Motion carried to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you. Moving on to business items. Item number 5. Mr. Borgia is going to present this item to us.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Mike Borja, Administrative Services Manager for the City of Canyon Lake. Tonight, staff is bringing forward a resolution asking City Council to adopt resolution number 2020-10, approving the fiscal year 2020-21 projects list for Senate Bill 1, also known as SB 1, which is the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. Each year, the city is allocated funding for SB1 projects that address transportation funding shortfalls statewide. We, as a city, are required each year to provide a list of projects that we would like to see this funding go towards. I put together a small presentation for the council members that are calling in. I believe you should have a copy in front of you. So I just briefly wanted to go over these projects that myself and the city engineer, Brad Brophy from Tri-Lakes Consultant, looked at and determined were more of the immediate needs for Railroad Canyon Road. And again, SB1 funding is for Railroad Canyon Road only. The first project that we're presenting is the sound wall repairs. Over time, and I don't know if you can see the pictures here, we have quite a bit of damage that has occurred to our sound walls from either vehicles being hit, some areas from where people have literally jumped over the fence, over the wall, and have literally caused damage to the top portions of the sound wall. In addition to that, we also have a lot of unfinished walls along Railroad Canyon Road. Something similar to what you see in front of Pepe's restaurant. If you notice the difference between the wall and the other portion of the walls that we have out there. The idea is to resurface those walls to look identical what normally we see with the sound walls. Some of this is sort of sporadically throughout different areas on Railroad Canyon Road. On the majority is on the eastbound side. In fact, all of them are on the eastbound side where we see some of this unfinished surface. So last year, as part of our allocation for SB1, we did put a small amount towards the sound wall, but we're also looking to add just a little bit more to it to not only take care of the cost of the resurfacing, but also to take care of the damage that we have on the sound wall too as well. So project costs about $100,000. Previous balance from SB1 funding from previous year was 35, so technically we would have about $135,000 to go towards this project. The second project is the pedestrian crosswalk enhancements. This project is to upgrade all the existing push buttons at traffic signal crosswalks to accessible pedestrian push buttons. So I have listed all the crosswalks that we're looking to address on Railroad Canyon Road: Skylink Drive, Country Club Drive, Canyon Lake Drive South, Town Center West, Town Center East, and Sorrel Lane. The idea is to change out what we currently have there, which is what you see on the large picture to the right, to the more updated audible tones and countdown feature type crosswalks upgrades. Project cost is about $63,000. These numbers are sort of estimates, and I should probably point this out too as well. Although we may allocate funding for one project to be a certain amount, we have the ability to move some of that funding accordingly to any of the projects that's on the list. So for this project, we estimate it to be somewhere around $63,000.
Mike, I have a question for you.
Yes, go ahead.
This is Jeremy Smith. Real quick, did we look at, I'm looking at the PowerPoint. Thank you, Anna, for sending that over. You know, the one section there where you have the lights, is it new reflectors or are they actually solar lights that are going to be on at night?
Hey, I'm sorry, in regards to what again? The lights?
Yeah, I'm looking at, I think it's the fourth page. On the little turn section there, it has lights. At least at nighttime, it's showing that.
Oh, you're referring to the next project, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, so if I can, if I can go into that project and then we can talk about that. But
yeah, absolutely. If it's a separate project, absolutely. I apologize.
But actually, let me just point that out. So what you're seeing there on that bottom picture in the center, those are not lights. That's actually the reflective. What you would see, what you see right above it is technically what it looks like in the daytime. So it's not actual lights, it's sort of a reflective paint, I believe is what it is.
So Mike, the reason why I bring that up is because I'm sure you've seen it, especially in Orange County and other places, where in the crosswalks they have actual lights that flash when people are crossing the intersection. And is it possible to use SB1 funds to do that on our crossing, since it is such a big crossing and a lot of people walk it, or golf carts going to Pepe's and whatnot. Is that something that's possible to do?
Absolutely, yes it is.
Yeah, with either gas or, because I mean, that intersection definitely calls for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of areas on Railroad Canyon Road where we can definitely make these improvements. And what you're seeing right now on my PowerPoint are only examples of what we've kind of come across. But yes, we do have that options to add those if we need to, yes.
Perfect. Okay, sorry to interrupt you. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. So getting to the striping improvement project, the images on the left are currently what we kind of have out there right now. There's no reflective coloring around these islands in the center mediums. It's sort of a safety hazard too as well. We want it to be more visible for our commuters that are traveling through Railroad Canyon Road through the city here. You know, I've always been looking out for the safety of Railroad Canyon Road. So this is just another added project that I was hoping that we could maybe look forward to doing too as well, because this is a well-needed project that we should definitely do. Project cost again is about $50,000, but again, these numbers can fluctuate depending on what the true cost would be. These are only estimates, and we can move SB money around based on these three projects that we do have. So,
would we have enough funds to do the lighting?
So for this particular SB1 funds for this year, we are allocated about $213,138. It's a significant jump from last year, which I believe was somewhere about 190, 195. So we are getting a little bit more money. So we do. I believe we have more than enough money to take care of these projects for us.
I mean, the additional that Councilman Smith was referring to, we have funds to do that?
Yes, yeah, it's SB1 money would cover that.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
Yeah. So we should be okay. We also do have currently SB1 monies already for projects that have been sort of provided in the past to the California State Controller's Office. So there's still a little bit of money still in there. So we have more than enough money to take care of all these projects. Absolutely.
And I think his question was, are those would they be solar lights or would they be powered?
They could be. They could be. I mean, ideally, we prefer to go solar because then you don't have to worry about the electrical portion of it and save on costs of doing that as well. We'll look at all options to see what's going to be the best thing for Railroad Canyon Road.
Okay, thank you.
And that concludes my presentation. So staff is recommending to City Council to adopt Resolution 2020-10.
Any other comments from the council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve this item.
I'll make the motion that we approve 2020-10, business item number 5.
Did I hear a second?
Second the motion.
Who seconded the motion, please?
Green.
Larry, thank you. Okay, we need another roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaron-Kranz?
Aye.
Motion carried to approve resolution number 2020-10.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6. This is the resolution number 2020-11.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So the city annually reviews the schedule of rates that the city's franchise trash hauler, CR&R, is permitted to charge residents and businesses. As we've mentioned, the city and CR&R have been in the process of looking at our franchise agreement with them, which has been in place since 1992, and renegotiating the terms of that agreement. We have substantially reached agreement on the major deal points and are working on finalizing that agreement currently. It is anticipated that adjustments to the current schedule of rates will be necessary for the upcoming fiscal year, requiring the conducting of a public hearing. Additionally, to continue implementation of the voluntary EMS subscription program recently established by the City Council, the Council should consider setting rates for the EMS subscription and EMS response fees. The notice of intent contemplated by the attached resolution will inform every person in Canyon Lake of proposed adjustments to the schedule of rates charged by CR&R and the potential establishments of rates for the EMS subscription program. Residents will have the opportunity to submit written protest to the proposed rate adjustments and establish an establishment and/or opt out of the EMS subscription program. Should the council approve this evening, the city staff and CR&R will work together to put out a Prop 218 notice approximately the middle of April with the anticipation of having a public hearing before the council in June. So with that, the staff recommends approval of resolution number 2020-11.
Any comments from the council?
I have a comment to the city manager. This is Green.
Yes, sir.
Chris, how much do you think the end result with this renegotiation is going to be for the positive for the city? We have a dollar amount?
We do have an amount in mind. I'm always hesitant to throw out numbers until we have more specifics because people tend to grasp onto those. However, in very, very ballpark numbers, we believe this would be an increase in revenue to the city somewhere around $200,000 a year.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments or questions from the council? Then I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll make the motion. Green.
And Jeremy Smith will second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Green and a second by Councilmember Smith to approve resolution number 2020-11. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Do it again.
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaron-Krantz?
Aye.
Motion carried to approve resolution number 2020-11.
Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 7, and that's resolution number 2020-12, approving amendment number 1 to the city manager's employment agreement. And I think the city attorney gets to present this item.
I do have that privilege, Mayor. The city manager was hired by the city last year, effective March 1st. Per the terms of his contract, he had a 6-month performance evaluation and then an annual performance evaluation. And after that annual performance evaluation, he was eligible for an increase in compensation based off of his performance over the previous year. City Council met in closed session at its March meeting, held the performance evaluation, and determined that an increase in compensation was appropriate, increasing the city manager's annual compensation to $165,000 a year, and providing a one-time addition of 80 hours of vacation time because we don't want to burn our city manager out. Although I'm afraid I don't think you're going to be able to take it anytime soon because there's nowhere to go. It should be noted, however, that even with this compensation increase, the city manager is still the most modestly compensated city manager in Riverside County by a significant margin. The reason I had to read all these things out loud and do this on a business item is because the Brown Act requires it. But if there's any other questions from the mayor or city council, I'm happy to answer them.
Council, have any questions? Comments? Okay, then I guess we'll have a motion to approve this. Well, I do have one comment.
I move adoption of resolution number 2020-12.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay, well, my comment was well worth every penny of it, so thank you very much. I'm not trying to influence the vote, though.
Mr. Mayor.
A roll call vote, please.
Yes, and for the record, there's no public comment on this specific item. Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaron
Aye.
Motion carried to approve resolution number 2020-12.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 8, this is a public hearing which I'm going to open it 6:22. City manager is going to present this item.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this will be a very brief presentation.
Sure.
Planning director had placed this item on the agenda this evening in anticipation that we would have comments back from state HCD. We have not yet received those comments. We need them in order to adopt the midterm housing element. And so staff recommends that we go ahead and take public comment if there is any, close the public hearing, and then continue it until the City Council's May meeting.
Just a correction, we will not close the public hearing, we'll just continue it. So we'll take comments, which we have none, and we can continue the hearing.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we have no comments. So then at this point, we're just going to continue the hearing. And I guess this, we don't need a motion or a second at this time, do we, to continue?
I recommend that you have a motion to continue the public hearing to the next scheduled regular meeting of the City Council.
Okay, then
That way our minutes are clear.
Thank you.
You need a motion?
Yes, please.
Green makes the motion.
Smith seconds it.
We have a motion and a second. Once again, we need a roll call vote.
Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaron
Aye.
Motion carried to continue the public hearing to the next regularly scheduled City Council meeting on May 6th.
Okay, this version of the public hearing is closed at 6:25. Moving on to item number 9.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we already took up item number 9. We took it out of order.
Right, well,
If I may, Mayor,
did we vote on it?
we did vote on item number 9. However, we did receive a comment. If it's okay with you, I'd like to read the email submission into the record.
Certainly.
Thank you.
On which item, I'm sorry?
Not specifically, but it references item 9.
Okay, very good.
The email reads, "To whom this may concern," and I'm sorry, this is from Rachel Brady. "I own a local business doing OBGYN ultrasounds here in the center and have been told to close my doors. It has been brought to my attention that other cities, along with this county of Riverside, has deemed us an essential business. Also, we were applying for the Paycheck Protection Program through SBA and North American Industry Classification System, is also deeming us essential under the fact that ultrasounds are considered a preventative measure. Ultrasounds are a means to prevent, detect, treat, and manage development of the fetus, which is essential to healthy development, which makes our clinic just as important as a medical office to keep both mother and infant safe throughout pregnancy. Right before the closure, I had a scared mom come to check the heartbeat. Come to find out her baby did not develop a brain. Had this gone unseen, this growing baby would continue to grow with no life expectancy for another 8+ weeks. The call that prompted this email tonight was a mom who was debating whether or not to have an abortion, wanted to take a look at her baby. This is so important. We need to be here for these women. I am all about the safety of our community and felt this needs to be heard. I can assure you, we have been taking all precautions since the 1st of March, including one person in the facility at a time, gloves, masks, and serious cleaning measures between. We are also requiring the client to have been in quarantine for 14 or more days. This is a scary time and needs to be taken serious. Thank you for your time."
Well, we thank you for your comment. I don't think we can add anything on that at this particular time, but we do appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Can I have a discussion on the comment, or Mr. Attorney, how would you direct us?
If you want to reopen item number 9, I'd recommend that you make a motion and take a vote to do that.
In this regards, I would like to make the motion to reopen it for this discussion on what is considered non and essential businesses in Canyon Lake.
That's fine.
I need a second.
Councilman Smith, if you wish to make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I do. I need a second.
Second.
We have a motion.
Casey.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Smith and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Castillo to reopen item number 9.
Okay, we need to take a vote on this before we have the discussion.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaron-Kranz?
Aye.
Motion carried to reopen item number 9.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith, would you like to?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council, for allowing us to have this discussion. As you know, most of us in the community have been, changing regularly on new things that's coming out. And in my personal business, I always try to tell my clients to be very cautious and very careful about putting out information, because it seems to be changing every single day as we adapt to COVID-19. In regards to this particular, the businesses in Canyon Lake, one that we're talking about is from the public comment. I guess this would be directed more towards you, Chris, Mr. City Manager. Wouldn't this essentially be considered essential business that maintains, in the health category, because of some of the issues that take place with pregnancy and having an outlet to make sure everything's going okay, and especially with the hospitals being so overcrowded and having so many issues, wouldn't this be considered essential?
Mr. Councilman Smith, thank you. Some of the categories and types of businesses on the list of those that are deemed essential are pretty obvious, pretty black and white. Others require some interpretation or are a little less clear. This might be one of those, and I think we'd have to spend some time looking into the details of this business. I'm not familiar with exactly what they do, what all services they provide. Are they staffed with doctors, with nurses? Are they late? I would ask that staff have an opportunity to look at the specifics of this case and then apply that to the orders that have gone out and see if this does fall into a category of an essential service.
I know, I would appreciate that, Chris. I know we're already asking our staff to do so much, and we're doing everything we can to help our business community. But when this one came up in public comment, it kind of just it's a little bit different. It's not your it's a little bit more unique. So I would appreciate that if we could move forward with that and take a deeper dive into it.
Absolutely, happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Councilmember Smith. And I'm sure that knowing our staff, they'll get the correct answer for you or for all of us. I guess that takes us down to City Manager comments.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just a few brief updates for me tonight. It has certainly been an eventful month since our last meeting. As we've discussed, City Hall is closed to the public, but services are still being provided as usual. Public can access those services by calling City Hall, by emailing City Hall, and by the city's website. The building department is still open. We're accepting plan submittals electronically. We've also devised a system where if someone really must submit a physical set of plans, that there is a bucket for them to deposit those plans. Those plans are then brought into the building department office and quarantined for 72 hours before they're processed. Our business licensing operation is still going. We're still accepting business licenses. Our residential rental registration program is still operational. We are accepting registrations. However, we have temporarily put on hold any inspections. So if someone wishes to register now and to take advantage of the 50% off the business license fee between now and June 30th, they are still able to do that, and we will just schedule the inspections once it's safe to do so. A little bit of sad news that we found out yesterday. Martin Haberly, who is our building official under our contract with Interwest, has announced his retirement. It's rather unexpected and sudden. My understanding is that he has a second home in Utah, and he was at that home when the COVID-19 outbreak kind of expanded, and he has decided he has been self-quarantined in Utah, and upon reflection decided that this would be a good time to retire. So we were not expecting it. We will miss him. He was really quite good and did a really fantastic job working with the residents and the businesses in our community. Our contract with Interwest continues, and Mr. Gil Petrus will assume the role of the city's building official effective immediately. So we shouldn't miss a beat in terms of processing applications in our building department. All staff of the city are continuing to report to work, with one exception, and that being our WRCOG intern, Megan Nazarino. Her time with us is coming to an end anyway. She has really been tremendous the past year and has really helped us with a lot of projects. We're gonna miss working with her. ESCI continues to work on our fire department feasibility study. There are phone interviews with each member of the council with ESCI scheduled for next week. Originally, they were going to fly down and do in-person meetings in the community, but because of current state of things, those have been changed to phone interviews. But the study is ongoing, and we are still targeting completion sometime in June. Our economic development initiatives continue to move forward. Some positive news: on Thursday of last week, we closed escrow on the purchase of 31542 Railroad Canyon Road. We're currently working on putting property management practices in place, and we're contacting the tenants in the building to let them know of the change. We're still working on our potential changes to the city's cannabis ordinance. We're working with HDL on that. We conducted a couple weeks ago and completed a public opinion survey, but the rest of the process is on hold for now until the COVID-19 restrictions are lifted, so that we can have a more robust public participation in those discussions. There was a joint City Council POA board meeting scheduled for April the 13th. Staff is recommending at this time that we go ahead and cancel the meeting. It's extremely unlikely that we'll be in a position to be able to hold a gathering of that size or possibly of any size by April 13th. So if the council is amenable, we'd like to get permission to go ahead and contact the POA and let them know that we think we gotta cancel that meeting. Does anyone object to that?
No, I certainly think that that's appropriate at this time.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to end tonight on a positive note. As I mentioned, we're sad to be losing our WRCOG fellow Megan Nazarino. However, our new management analyst, Tyler Ferrari, started today. Tyler comes to us from the office of State Senator Mike Morrell. I'd like to let the council know that we received over 40 applications for the position. We interviewed the 6 most qualified applicants, and Tyler's experience and his performance during the interview really stood out. We're very excited to have him on board, and we'll be sure to introduce him to the community at a future city council meeting. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to council reports. Councilmember Bonner.
First of all, the RCDC meeting is next Wednesday, the 8th of April, and we're going to do it on the Zoom application, and I haven't figured out what that is yet, but I talked to Mike earlier today, and he's going to help me figure out how to do that, but it's going to be very similar to what we're doing with the city council meeting. The roundtable, the city POA, law enforcement, and water district has been canceled for Monday, April 13th. And then I'd like to make some comments. I want to thank the staff for the incredible efforts since the virus became reality, but especially the enforcement team. I think for most of our citizens that are responding positive. However, I've never been seen in 73 years of living and almost 24 years in Canyon Lake see anything like this. We do, unfortunately, seem to have citizens that are not taking this serious. For example, last week we had 0 cases. On Monday we had, or yesterday we had 1. Today we had 3. That's triple in 1 day. And so anybody that doesn't think it's possible in Canyon Lake, it's happening in Canyon Lake. The city declarations are entirely consistent with federal, state, and county directives. The city and the POA are working closely. Please, I ask respectfully that we accept the citizens' responsibility of protecting our citizens of safety, welfare, and health. Please stay home. If you go out, please respect the 6 foot distance, and all other things that they told you, or give guidance to make sure we don't spread this virus any longer than this. And last and foremost, God bless.
Thank you. Councilmember Castillo.
Hello. I also want to echo Councilmember Bonner and say I've been really impressed with our city staff and how hard they've worked. It seems like we continuously pile more work on our special enforcement and code enforcement staff. Most recently it was, hey, learn how to do fire inspections. Then it was, hey, now you're going to do residential rental inspections. And now, hey, go enforce emergency orders. So I'm very grateful to those staff members as well as the administrative staff members who have worked tirelessly to make sure that we are updating our citizens as best as can be with continuous information that keeps changing. If you have noticed, our city staff has been really diligent in updating our city website and our city Facebook page, but even then the information continues to come fast. I know in speaking for at least the city manager and myself, we try to put information out on the social media pages. Additionally, I've received comments from residents, particularly Mr. Torkelson has commented to me a couple times that we needed to update our code red so that it read at least a caller ID from the city of Canyon Lake. Those comments did not fall on deaf ears. I've had conversations with city staff and city manager about how that can be achieved. I know that they've reached out to the company as well. So they're working on that. I will note that I do have a child who's in the Lake Elsinore School District, and the Lake Elsinore School District also sends out messages in the same manner. It doesn't say Lake Elsinore School District when they call. So if you can, please save the code red number into your phone while we work on the caller ID. That number is 866-419-5000. If you did not catch that, it is posted on my Mayor Pro Tem Facebook page, And I imagine that you can also make sure that you register with the city to get the updates. That information is on our city website. So if you are missing out on updates, text messages, phone calls, and the like, please make sure that you register with the city. And additionally, thank you for everyone for, really trying to come together as a community and support our open businesses. I know we do have some essential businesses and those that are offering takeout. We continue to want to support those businesses to our best ability. I know we have a new restaurant that opened this week. So welcome to that restaurant, which was previously in the space held by Signature Desserts. And then lastly, I want to say Happy Easter.
Thank you. Councilmember Green.
Well, it's been an unusual month. Things have changed almost daily, weekly, where we started, and I think it's still going to change. Most of my committee assignments have been canceled, although the RCA Executive Committee did retract the cancellation, and we are going to have a meeting next week on Wednesday, our normal time, downtown in Riverside. So that's the only ones of the committees that I've been assigned to that are actually up and running. But this is an interesting time, a difficult time for a lot. We'll get through it. I've got to commend the staff, the city manager, for the hard work that we've been doing in the last week to 2 weeks and what we'll be doing in the next month or longer. So again, congrats, we get some pushback, but we're doing the right things as a city government, and I have to commend staff and all of us who are working to try to make it a better place and try to comply with the guidelines and the rules that have been passed to us. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Larry said, I'll echo, it's been extremely weird times in regards to our regional committees. RTA met on Thursday over the phone, first time in history that's ever happened where the entire organization met on a conference call. And I think it's the beginning for a lot of us to experience these first time in history moments with some of these type of meetings using Zoom and other technology. But most of it's just COVID-19. I'm sure a lot of people been a part of what's going on in the news and have been, we as electeds get accustomed to National League of City conference calls and keeping up to date what they're doing in the White House. And there's a lot of moving parts, and we can't do it without our community members, without our leaders. So I just want to give a huge shout out and a huge thanks to all the community members in Canyon Lake stepping up, who are willing to do all they can to do what is right. But more importantly, thank you to the city staff. We've thrown so much at you, and the community needs you. And keep your heads up high, and thank you for literally being on the grounds for us and doing all that you can and doing it as safe as you possibly can. But I echo so many of my neighbors and friends by saying thank you. Thank you so much for all the hard work, and that you continue to get up and you continue to show up to work, and you're passionate about it, and you want to make this community as safe as we possibly can. So Mr. City Manager, staff, thank you. I do appreciate you and all that you do. And if there's any more that we can be doing, please don't hesitate. I'm available. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I guess brings me to my portion. There's not much more I can say. I think you've heard it all from the other council members. I just want to please tell everybody that this emergency regulation, as uncomfortable as it probably is for some of us, it must be done. And certainly if we're going to win this war, as our president calls it, then we have to abide by these rules. I can tell you that my wife won't even answer the door. She's been cooped up for 16 days now without ever going out. I've snuck out a couple of times. Obviously, I can be found tonight. So you know that I am out once in a while. I do have my handy wipes. I have a whole box full of them. I also have a mask, and if you're wondering why I'm not wearing it tonight, when I wear the mask, my glasses fog up. So I wear it when I don't have to read. But otherwise, I try to protect myself as much as possible. And if everybody does that, I think we'll get through this. And once again, my thanks go to everybody here. It's certainly been a very, very difficult time, but I think that it's going to be okay. Okay. You know, I have an acronym that I've always told my kids, and I think I probably used it here before, but it's EGBOK. That's E-G-B-O-K. Everything's going to be okay. So let's just keep our fingers crossed and pray that it turns out that way. I do have one other comment to Council Member Castillo. Are you on the line still?
Yes.
Are we going to have our veterans meet on the 14th of April?
We have been going back and forth on email regarding whether or not we could do a virtual or an email meeting. I know that Madam City Clerk was kind of going to discuss that with Mr. Borlatt and figure out what would be the easiest way to do that. And I'm waiting for an update.
Okay, well,
But we do have two new committee members, so that is very exciting.
I read, that's great. Well, you know, it's a great committee. Certainly, hopefully we can meet some way or another. If not, we'll make it work. There's still time. But our city clerk, I think, wants to address this.
Yes, I would just like to address Madam Mayor Pro Tem. City staff would be happy to facilitate a conference call. We definitely have the capabilities here. If your preference is to meet with us and we can meet in the conference room and then we can have everybody else call in, we can definitely do that. However the council feels most comfortable, we can definitely facilitate so we can still continue with that meeting as scheduled.
Okay, well, we'll have to make that decision fairly soon. So thank you for offering that help. And with that, I think the next meeting, hopefully, or not hopefully, but we'll have the meeting one way or the other, which is at May the 6th at 5 p.m. for a closed session, if we have closed session, at 6:30 p.m. for our regular meeting. And with that, thank all those who participated on adjourning this meeting at 6:47.